churches are coming in, and we're seeing tremendous work done by the Christians that are coming and serving, and they're serving with such a wonderful heart, and they're caring about the people. They're not just sitting around taking pictures and doing all that stuff and glorying in their misery. What they're doing is they're coming and saying, what can we do to help? And they have just the heart of the Lord. And it's just amazing, the Spirit of God. And that's awesome. We looked at the storm as though it was just going to become a tropical storm by the time it came to us. Any of the warnings that we were hearing really weren't predicting, that I know of, that it was going to stay into full formation by the time it got us. And in the past, that's what we've always seen. So we really were not expecting it to do the damage that it did while as it was coming toward us. Matter of fact, we really even stopped, for the most part, listening to most of the news at that point, because we just weren't too concerned about it. My wife was. I was not. I'd been through a number of hurricanes in Louisiana, because that's where I grew up, in New Orleans area. And so I thought, well, this is normal. Just fill up the bathtubs, have some water available, because we might go without water, electricity for a few days. And if that happens, we've got something to flush the toilets with. We got drinking water if we need it. And we had some extra water anyhow. So I felt prepared. She was concerned that we needed to leave, because by the day as it was coming, they was giving warnings that this is our area was a flood zone. Even though we were high up and I wasn't concerned that we would get flooded, we knew that a mile down the road at Biltmore Village, that is a flood zone. It's very low, and they've had floods in the past that have, even during the time we've been here in the last 34 years, we've seen, or 33 years, we've seen flooding in that area, but nothing to the dimension of what happened here. And so, in all reality, I just told her, don't worry about it. She kept saying, really, we should evacuate. I said, I don't think so. And so we didn't. And about 2 a.m, as the winds had built and the hurricane was upon us, my wife could hear it all. I think woke up once or twice and heard the noise, but I was tired. I fell right back asleep. It didn't concern me until we got a text from the church secretary, and I looked at my phone, and she said the trees had fallen all around her house, but they're okay. None of them at that time had hit the house. So she put that in the text, and I said, okay, good. Then I just texted back, I'm glad you're okay, as it was not a big deal. She said, we're okay. Great. And so I texted back, glad you're okay, praying for you. And we were. We prayed immediately right then, and I fell back to sleep. My wife had been up from that point on, and actually had been up off and on, because we had a black walnut tree that was near the house, and these things are about the size of a baseball, and they were hitting the house like crazy, banging on it, like somebody was popping it. And so she was awake. My son-in-law and daughter were awake and concerned, and they stayed up the whole night. And then about 6 a.m, I got another text from the secretary, and she said that a tree had finally hit the house. This time it came down on it and landed on, thankfully, I didn't know this at the time, it had landed on the chimney. It had broken through the roof with two branches had poked straight through, but we saw the damage afterwards, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as we thought it could have been. And we later asked her about it, and she said that she had been praying all night as these trees were coming down, because they were coming down one at a time, and they were huge, massive pine trees, and they ancient things. And she was down in this little knoll that you might call, or cove that you might call, they call in this area a holler, and because you can holler from one cove to the other and you can hear each other, but yet it was deep enough that you can't see the house, you can't see where they're at. And those trees literally surrounded that house. 12 large pine trees and 3 oak trees went down, and none of them hit the house until that last one that finally hit and landed right on the chimney, and the chimney stopped it. Had it not hit it, it would have split that house in half. It probably killed them both, her and her husband. She was on the phone with her daughter at the time. They had not lost cell power yet. And she said, the tree hit the house. We got to get out of here. So her daughter, who couldn't leave, called the other daughter to try to get him out. And she was able to get him out with her boyfriend. She went over to his house and said, we got to get mom and dad out. And he was a big enough guy that he could climb down the hill and help them walk up the hill to get out. Her husband's 80 and she's in her 60s. And so, but they got him out safely. There was no other way to get out of the house but the back and through. I think they even went through a window to get out, but they got out. And then the last few days, people have been, after that, people were able to get in. Matter of fact, Calvary Chapel of Lake Norman came with a tremendous crew of people and machinery and cut their way through and cut down the tree that was on the house for him. And it was a tremendous blessing. In the middle of all this, when I got up in the morning, to me, it just seemed like a normal day of frustration because it was going to be no water, no electricity, and no cell service. We had a little bit of texting we could do, but nothing else. But the house was unscathed for the most part. And so we got out of the house and started looking around to see what was going on. And as we got out in the neighborhood, we knocked and checked on our neighbors' doors and see how they're doing. And we all began to get together and talk and see things. And we went to the street and saw that some large pine trees had gone down and knocked out the power and were blocking the road on one side, but we could get out to the main road on the other. And so there was some good things we saw right away. That was the neighbors began to immediately check on each other and share whatever we had, not knowing how long this was going to be or how much damage was done. Until we got out in our cars, we began to drive down the road and began to see the massive amounts of trees that were down and electrical poles that were broken in half. Some of those trees were not just were they uprooted. We had other trees that were literally just twisted off right where they were, massive, 2 foot in diameter or 3 foot in diameter. And they just were twisted as though somebody took a toothpick and just broke it off. And then as we got down to the Biltmore Village and saw the flooding that was about a quarter mile wide, the Swananoa River goes through there, and it's normally maybe about 1.5 feet, 2 feet deep and about 30 to 40 feet on average wide. Sometimes it might be 50 or 60 feet wide, but minimal amount of water. But this thing came up over its banks, some 30 feet above its banks. And so that everything in its way was swept away or torn up. And because as it would pick up other items and take it with it, became battering rams, just hitting things and taking them down. And we were just amazed. And we were saying, now we get out, we see swift rescue boats being dropped off by the fire department as they're going out to find people and pick them up and get them out of houses and hotels were in that area. People were in some of the hotels still and had to get rescued. And so we're just taking pictures and we're still looking and saying, I can't believe it. And we're just kind of dumbfounded at that moment, but amazed. And we began to search further. And so we got to check on the people in the body. And so we began to text to see if people are okay. The night before all this had happened, I'd gone through the roster in our church and began to just call people and pray with them. Because I know I've been through hurricanes. I know what they're like. But again, I didn't expect this to be what it was. So I began to pray with different people in the morning, that evening beforehand. So when I went to bed, I felt very comfortable. I was okay until we began to drive down the road and see, again, further damage as we went along, and then began to realize I can't get hold of my children. I can't get hold of my other family members because there just was no way to do that. And so that's when I began to get concerned, a higher stress level and concern, and realized how devastating it was. And then when we did get through to some people and they began to tell us what was happening around them, we realized we have to do something. So my wife and I began to try to get out. But at this point in time, about 8 a.m, now people are coming out of the houses, getting in their cars, and the roads getting blocked by people besides trees down and telephone wires down and electricity wires down. People began to get out with their vehicles. And now you're just stuck in a long line. And so we had to turn around and go back and wait. We said, let's wait till the morning. We tried it early in the morning again. So next day we did. We were able to get as far as the airport, which is about 8 miles from our house and get to the bridge that we would have to cross over to get by the church and start to see what's happening there and make calls. But we couldn't get through. The river was over the bridge, and so they had blocked it off. And now we began to just feel a defeatedness, where we realized we're not going to be able to get to anybody or help them right now. So we had to stay with our neighborhood. We started just ministering to the neighborhood, giving whatever we had and sitting with them and sharing and encouraging one another. And then I got a call from Sandy Adams, and I didn't realize how much stress I was under until he asked me how I was doing. And he said, "Billy, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm good." And then right now, like I'm doing right now, I just couldn't talk. I began to cry as I realized I don't know how we're doing. So far, everybody I could contact was okay, but there was so many I hadn't contacted, I didn't know how to get hold of them. And I knew we needed to get something done. I didn't know what to do. And the next day, thankfully, we were able to get to the church. The water had receded enough. We got over it, and we were the only two here. That's okay. I didn't expect anybody else to be here, but I just wanted to see how the church was and see if we could make calls from here, if there was enough communication system available or anything. And there wasn't. But we began to realize that we're just going to have to find a way to get to people. And thankfully, a few people were able to get texts to us, and then we said, "Are you okay?" And they said, "Yeah." And we began to find out every time we did start to get a text or get a communication to somebody, we'd find out all of them had the same story. Almost. They'd say, almost. The tree almost hit the house. The tree almost hit the whatever, or destroyed, or the water almost took the house away. Almost. And we were just amazed at the almost that were there. And especially when we began to get further out and see the places where they could say, no, it wasn't an almost. The house is gone. The family's gone. We don't even know where they are. The school is gone. The city is gone. The entire business district is gone. And so we said, we just got to open the church. We got to do whatever we can. Let's make a way to start helping each other, and let everybody know that we're here. They can stay here if they need to, or they want to come and work. And then we started getting calls. Bob and Kate Matthews called us right away and said, "How can you help?" They have after the storm for him. Guys from Calvary Relief started calling. The pastors of Pastor Gary from Calvary Chapel in Fort Mills called and said, Pastor Gary Howell said, "We're sending a team. Can we stay at your place?" "Yeah, come on out." And they were here the next day. Pastor Mike Berner from Calvary Chapel Lake Norman called and said, "We're sending teams. We'll be there." And sure enough, they came, and both of them came with tractors. They came with case loaders. They came with chainsaws. They came with food. They came with clothing. They came with water. They came with everything you can imagine. They came with glad hearts. They came with broken hearts, but glad hearts, in the sense that they couldn't wait to give us a hug and fill up our fellowship hall with food and water and all these different things that they had just to help. And said, "Come on, let's go find some place where do you want us to go?" And I said, "I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know where to go yet." And they said, "We understand." And so they started, I said, "Let's go to the secretary's house." We went there first, and they opened that place up and cut down the tree off the house and did a phenomenal job. And they worked all day. They got up at 4 and they left where they were in Lake Norman at 4:30 in the morning, got here, didn't have anything to eat, worked all day till 4:00 in the afternoon. And finally, I had to tell them, "Okay, guys, you have to stop and go get something to eat. And we'll come back tomorrow. This is not going anywhere. It's going to be here tomorrow." And they worked like incredible. I don't know how, I don't want to, some of them were like beasts. They were strong guys, but they were just, they gave it their all. They didn't want to stop. They wanted to keep working. And I said, "I understand, but we got to stop. Otherwise you won't be doing well. We need to stop." So they did. So we stopped and came back, and They got something to eat, and then they left. They went home. They drove 2 more hours back home, and then came back the next day early in the morning. I'm just barely surviving. They're going like gangbusters, and they brought more with them the next day. And and Gary and his team stayed and spent the night and started up early in the morning again. And they just went out and found places to work. They cleared off the house behind the church that trees had fallen down. They spent the whole day doing that, and they went off the next day into an area that was just trees everywhere and began to cut them away and set people free from their roads and from their houses. And that's what it's been since then. 6 teams, 7, 8, 9 teams have been here so far in 1 week, and more coming. They were able to get the generator running for us because we have a generator here. We just hadn't had it hooked up yet. So they found a way to make it work. I won't give any details on that. But they got it working for us. And so we had power here, which meant we had water because we have a well. So we need the electricity to get water going, because that's the other problem. Everybody was without water in most of the areas. And you need water. You got to have water to do things in life. And so they got the electricity running, got the lights on, got the well running. So now we can flush the toilets, and now we're set up for 30 teams. I mean, teams of 30 at a time. And actually, we just got 2 tents from Lynchburg, brought 2 40 by 4 tents set up, and we can put more people in those, and we can have cookouts. And we got Calvary Relief brought a chef, and he's going to be cooking for us in the evenings, so we can bring people in and we can feed them after they get back in the day. And it's going gangbusters. People have been coming off the streets, getting food, getting clothing, getting diapers, getting wipes, getting baby formula. We met 2 young people came in. Matthew came in, said he's an Uber driver. He's been or Lyft driver. He's been picking people up and driving them where they need to go. And he said, and all of them are hurting. All of them have needs. Can I get something to give to them? I said, sure. He loaded his trunk up. He went off. He came back the next day. He brought a gal with him who needed some help financially because she couldn't pay a bill, and she needed to work. She's without work right now. And so we brought them in, let them get stuff. They came to church on Sunday morning, and now they're going out with teams all day long. He's going out with teams. She's going out with teams. And the people in the area coming by, we've contacted the fire marshal. I mean, the assistant fire chief over here, just down the door, a couple of buildings over from us. And so they've been letting people know that we're open and available. Anywhere we go, if there are houses, if people are calling us, and we're going to their places and getting it done. The teams are going out. Anybody who wants to help us, we're ready to equip them if they want to do that. I'm not sure what else to say. But
yeah.
Billy?
It doesn't have to be exhaustive, but just like off the top of your head kind of list of churches that have come out and helped.
Yes, Lynchburg, Knoxville, all Calvary chapels at this point, but also we've had some Baptist churches start to share their supplies with us, and we're sharing our supplies with them.
Philly.
Calvary Philly, Calvary Chapel of Lake Norman, Calvary Chapel Fort Mills, South Carolina. Johnson City is helping. They're actually getting straight down into Spruce Pine to help them. They're above them about an hour away, and they're going down and helping Spruce Pine area. There's about 8 different areas that have been really hard hit. Swannanoa, Lake Lure, Chimney Rock, Biltmore Village, or the city of Asheville, that is, Biltmore Village, is the historic area. Marshall has been hit heavy. Black Mountain has been hit hard, and Montreat. The areas of up in Fairview, up in the hill country there, has been hit hard too. Mudslides have been they've counted about approximately 400 mudslides that have taken place, and now we started having secondary mudslides because the first one came down and settled. Firemen are going in to save people out of their homes that are in these areas that have survived. And we lost one of our firemen actually up in Garin Creek area, I think it was. And so these guys need our prayers. The firemen and the first responders all need help. Their houses need help, but they have to go out and help others. And so we've offered ourselves and our teams to help them if they'll just let us know. We let the chief of police know. I know him personally, and said, "Listen, we're here to help. I'm also a chaplain for them," and said, "We've got teams to go out." And so we had a chance to go out and help one of the officers out in her area, which is out in the all the way out actually towards Old Fort is where her house. Actually, she's Lake Lure. You had to go through Old Fort to get to it, Lake Lure area, and so these areas are juxtaposition in a circle, kind of all around Asheville area, but not all. It's not easy to get to them all, and it's not like you just they're half a mile away from each other. They're sometimes a half an hour, sometimes an hour away to get to them. And we had one family that was up in by Nesbitt's Chapel, which is between Black Mountain and Fairview and Garringe Creek area. You have to go back through Garringe Creek to get to it. It's a very windy road through the mountains. One of the teams got to them, but they went twice to get through. The first day they were blocked off. The police wouldn't let them up the road because the linemen were working up there, and they said you can't get through today. And they actually brought a Polaris, towed it behind a trailer to get up there because they knew it was going to be hard to get into. And so they turned them around. They tried again the next day, and they were able to get through the second time. They brought a nurse with them in case there was anybody injured up there. When they finally get up there, they found the family we were looking for from our church was up there, and they were okay. They were preppers. They were all ready. And they're sitting on the porch, the husband and wife. They're relaxing from working all day, doing stuff to take care of things, but they were sitting there relaxing. So they came up and introduced themselves. "Hey, we're coming to check on, doing a wellness check." I said, "Yeah." And they sat down and they said, "You see that house across the street?" And they said, "Yeah." He said, "There used to be two houses there. And that one, we don't even know where that one came from. That wasn't even there before. The other two houses were washed away. This one has been brought down the river and left there." And so the neighborhood was hit hard. They made, I think, Nesbitt's Chapel a place for people to try to gather together and meet. It's been there for years. It's probably over 150 years old. And it's a stone chapel and still there. So Gary and his wife are caring for the neighborhood. And so we've made them a place to drop things off, and they're helping people get their needs met. And that's what's happening in communities all around here. The neighbors are helping each other. There is some trouble. There's some looting we're hearing. But for the most part, that's been taken care of by either the locals or by the National Guard or by the fact that there's a curfew. The curfew has been in effect. I think it's still in effect at 8 o'clock. They want people back in their homes because it's just dangerous to be out because the trees are down still. The roads are tight. Even if they've cleared the tree off, they've only been able to push them to the side right near the edge of the road. And if you're not driving carefully, or one coming one way or the other, you might hit a tree and get injured. And so they'd rather you be in at night. And then
back in the hills also just
down to one road. Yeah, and they all road.
The hole off to the side, and if you went off in that hole in your lane, you'd be dead.
That's right. When he says hole, he's talking about you're on a hillside, so it's already tight when it was good roads, when there was no trees down, and so if you have to squeeze over and your tire goes off, you're going to drop 30, 40 feet. You might go. You might just keep going. So it's not safe. So that's why they put a curfew up. But the churches are coming in, and we're seeing tremendous work done by the Christians that are coming and serving, and they're serving with such a wonderful heart, and they're caring about the people. They're not just sitting around taking pictures and doing all that stuff and glorying in their misery. What they're doing is they're coming and saying, "What can we do to help?" And they have just the heart of the Lord, and it's just amazing, the Spirit of God, and that's awesome. And so we're so thankful. And I asked the church this Sunday, I said, we're all detoxing. We're detoxing from our phones, whether we want to or not. We're detoxing from our TVs, the cable, the internet, and the news media, because honestly, that was one of the hard things too. We couldn't get any news for the first 3 or 4 days, and we didn't know how bad it was, except for what we could get to and see. And then the news is coming in, and we're shocked. We're in it, but we're shocked because we only see what was in our little neighborhood, our short area that we were driving out to and walking out to. And now when we're seeing how extensive it is and how many others are hurt and how badly, this has affected people. That was the other thing is for me, the first 3 days, once Sandy put an APB out to all the Calvary chapels in the United States, my phone has not stopped ringing off the hook. People, Calvary Chapel is calling, pastors calling, say, we want to send a team, or having their missions guy or their relief guy call us and say, we're sending a team. Some are sending them right away. Others are saying, when do you want us to come? Others are saying, we're going to wait off. We're going to hold back and come when things get sparse, because he says, they say, we've watched it and we've seen it happen. We've been involved in it. We're going to come when the teams get low, because we know what's going to happen. We're going to come with crews to repair and rebuild. And the overwhelming amount of generosity and desire to help is phenomenal, just phenomenal. I'm so thankful. And for the first 3 days, as those calls were coming in, I just kept weeping all day long. And my wife and I walking around weeping because of the pain we're seeing, but weeping because of the kindness and the generosity that people are sharing. And finally, and I had to realize, as a pastor, I need to realize I can only do so much. And I had to start calling the others that were in elders and leaders and pastors to come and say, listen, I need to hand stuff off to you. I need you to take care of this. I need you to take care of this. I can't do it. And they began to jump in. And so now we have teams of people working to organize and to coordinate and to, and that I don't have to own it all. It's not mine. None of this is mine. It's all the Lord's anyhow. And I say that for the other pastors, Florida's about to get hit by a massive hurricane in the next day or two. They're going to need help. And we know that there's going to be a shift of direction, and we understand that. But if you're one of those pastors and you're about to get this upon you, you need to know you have to be willing to let go of it and hand it to others and let them. It doesn't matter. It's all God's stuff, and these are His people. And your job is to be a shepherd and love these people and minister to them as best you can, and let others join in. And God's going to be glorified in it all. And I asked the church. I said, listen, if you had a chance to turn it back. Now, listen, I'm not talking about the dead, that you wouldn't want to see people die. I agree. We didn't want anybody to die, or loss of property has all been terrible. But in all honesty, has God used this in your life? Has God changed your life as a result of this? Has He changed your perspective to a way that gives you an eternal view? Is your life better as a result of the storm? And would you turn the storm back? If you, in comparing what you were like before and what you're like now, would you wanted to miss out on the storm? And I can say I'm thankful. I know that the enemy meant it for evil. God rebuked the storm, the wind and the waves. Jesus said in John 10:10, the thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy, but I came that you might have life and might have it abundantly. And Paul and Peter and in the scriptures tell us that suffering is something that God uses in our lives. And I can tell you this is that, and I know you guys, pastors, you know all this stuff, you don't need it. But for the others that we might read this later on, I want you to understand the storm has changed our lives for the better. Yes, we've lost property. I know that the Lord is sovereign, and those who died, He's able to deal with those issues. I'm not. But I know that my life, in the core of my heart, has been changed, and I'm thankful they took me through the storm, and that He's still working through it. And I know there's a lot to go.